Howdy, folks. Thanks for tuning in today. Hope y'all doing okay. You know the spiel about like, share, comment, subscribe, notification bell, and comments if you want my opinion on something or my take on something. So, I want to talk about something that is not terribly political in and of itself, but that I think's kind of frustrating about the way that government can function. Oh, for Pete's sake, traffic's terrible today. Alright, so the government created the Environmental Protection Agency. No problem with the idea behind it, no problem with their mission statement. The only real issue that I take with it is the EPA can start handing out guidelines and goals and whatnot, and they're not accountable to people. They're accountable to the government. So, like, okay, as an example, if you had a politician that wanted to do something insane that violated the Constitution, the will of the people, and even suppose, in a hypothetical scenario, that they were able to pass this unconstitutional, unpopular opinion into law, they're still accountable to the voters. So even if they got that done, the voters can just remember what happened and vote them out at the ballot box. With the EPA and a lot of government agencies, that doesn't happen. So there's no direct accountability for their jobs. So as an example, if the head of a government organization gets in and or a government regulatory agency gets in and starts doing stuff that's unpopular, they're going to have to come to the limelight. You know, the media's going to have to report on it. People are going to have to get upset. They're going to have to write their Congress people and ask them to do something about it, which they may or may not do, or find someone running for office that says that they will do something about a government agency overreach. It's kind of your options. So I'm not a big fan of three-letter government agencies as a rule, just due to the lack of accountability that they have to the people that pay their bills. Now, all that said, I'm going to take you back a little bit. When the EPA first became a thing, there was an understanding about vehicles that were off-road. So, as an example, you can buy, if you wanted to go out today, you could buy a brand new, pick your poison of a car that's reasonably fast and legally take off every emission component on the car. A car that had a VIN number would be ready for a license plate, fully road legal. You can legally take every piece of emission equipment off of that car under the condition that you never drive that car on a public road. So, good golly. So, as an example, if I had the money and I wanted to go out and build a race car, go out, buy a brand new car, cut every piece of emission equipment off of it, because they do cost a little bit of horsepower, especially when you're going for broke, and trailer it around to and from different events and run it at whatever racetrack I want. That is 100% legal. And, well, according to the way the law was interpreted, that was 100% legal. Everyone was in their right to do so long as it never saw use on a public road. Even if it had plates, it's not legal to cut the emissions equipment off of a vehicle and run it on the street, even if you have plates and insurance on it. Now, that said, that was the way that the EPA had interpreted one of their rules about something for decades. Now, all of a sudden, they've interpreted that rule differently, where if a vehicle has a VIN number that is designated for road use, you can never, ever, 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 until it ages out of its emissions test requirements, remove any emissions equipment from any road vehicle ever. So a lot of guys are 100% legal, or were 100% legal in what they do, and then the interpretation of a regulation, not a law, has landed them in hot water. Also, you now have companies that have been producing various emissions defeat devices, whether it is catless exhaust without catalytic converters, emissions defeat tunes, or EGR block-offs, EGR deletes. In the diesel world, you've got diesel particulate filter deletes and selective catalytic reduction deletes and catalytic converter deletes, all those things. People have been selling those for years online and whatnot, and on the packaging, and when you go online and you look at something, it all says this is not intended for use on a road-going vehicle. It's got its CARB 65 warning that this product may produce chemicals known to cause cancer in the state of California. It's got it doesn't have a California Air Resources Board EO number, emissions something number, I forget what it is. So it is not legal on an emissions compliant car. So if your state does have emissions testing, your car will fail every time. Now, all that said, people like the average end users of performance car parts were buying these parts and putting them on their cars in states that did not do emissions testing. So, for an example, say, alright, give you a case in point. The Focus I'm driving right now, little 1-liter 3-cylinder economy mobile, I could free up several miles per gallon and a handful of horsepower if I put a catalytic converter delete exhaust on it. Also, I'd get a little bit more exhaust noise. All fun stuff from a driving enthusiast perspective, and I saved myself a couple bucks a week at the pump. I know the car would be polluting more. I'm not going to get into the debates of that. Now, if I were to order a exhaust without a catalytic converter and put on my car, I would be breaking emissions law. The government isn't coming after guys like me in that scenario where I bought a part that was designed for off-road use only for vehicles that are on any sort of racetrack and just trying to optimize all the performance potential of that vehicle. They're coming after manufacturers that have built things that they said you cannot legally use it this way, it's breaking the law, and fining aftermarket automotive performance parts manufacturers, which I think is wrong. They complied with the interpretations of the regulations as they were understood and explained to them years ago, and it had been the standard way to operate in that realm for decades. And all of a sudden, someone who's not accountable to voters or anything changed their mind, and their business is being held, criminally liable is the wrong term, but they're being held liable for misuse of their products, even though it explicitly states you can't do this legally, which makes perfect sense to me.